Hello there, everyone, and welcome to something interesting that I decided to do. And joining me, I have.
Hey, it's me. I'm still around.
You didn't interrupt me. You've grown and matured. I'm so proud of you.
Hashtag New Year, New Me.
So for those of you unfamiliar, this is my brother.
Sup?
He's joining me because I was scrolling through Twitter the other day. It was actually like a week ago at this point. But I was scrolling through Twitter and I found this article. Basically, what I thought would be interesting is just kind of look through this and see, what do we think? What do we think of their rankings? Do we agree, disagree, things like that? Just to get my bias out of the way, I think Den of Geek is a pretty good website. It does a pretty good job. It has some really good writers, and it does, put care into the things it talks about. Specifically on the Power Rangers side, I think it's far better than anything you're going to find on Screen Rant or CBR or Watch Mojo. Places like those that just pump out articles without really having people who are dedicated to said fan base. And of course, as must be said, absolutely nothing against the people writing this or working on this. This is merely just looking at a difference of opinions, nothing more, nothing less.
100% concur with everything stated.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get this started. Power Rangers, ranking all 28 seasons. So let's start with... Okay, there's my mouse.
Okay, number 28.
So at 28, they have Power Rangers Megaforce.
I feel like at this point, low-hanging fruit, lol, Megaforce bad. The only change I would say here, Super Megaforce.
Hard agree. Super Megaforce, not good. Megaforce, good. Megaforce is good. I don't care what people say. It's good.
I would just say Megaforce bad, but Super Megaforce worse because of the fact that it's an anniversary season that doesn't capitalize really well on that. It's just does the basic anniversary things. Hey, here's these suits. Hey, here's a couple characters at the end. Hey, here's this. But they have no real backing to that lore. They don't elaborate how those keys were made. They don't elaborate how the Rangers can access these powers. They have Sentai suits that didn't exist in Power Rangers, and they are just powers from another world. We could have gotten elaboration. They should have made them powers from Androsia. Then at least there'd be some sort of connection with the sixth Ranger. I forget his name because I just don't care enough.
Orion.
Whatever. But again, point is, yeah, Megaforce and Super Megaforce at this point, low-hanging fruit, butt of the jokes, moving on.
Yeah, I will say though, I very much agree with this sentence right here. The only saving grace of the season is the hunky, fresh, poppin' and lockin' Robo Knight, who steals the entire show at the expense of everyone else. Robo Knight is a treasure, and he is one of the greatest characters that was ever made. I love this guy.
Somehow Robo Knight has more emotion than the 5 human characters combined.
Okay, so moving on. Next, 27 is Samurai. Anyone that knows me knows I am a hardcore fan of Samurai. Big disagree. Samurai is good. I understand why people dislike it, and I will admit it has several issues and can be difficult to watch, but I adore Samurai. I love the characters, I love the themes, I love the story, the plot. It's a season that I just absolutely adore. I watch it once a year, every year, for the past like 5, 6 years.
Yeah, I think Samurai is, if I'm being honest, pretty mid. There's nothing horribly offensive about it, but there's also nothing, that outstanding or that much that just makes it so much better than others. I would not say number 27. I'd say mid, like exactly somewhere in the middle, right? I think it does have quite a few growing pains because it's going from Disney. You have RPM just right before it. Disney was saying, okay, we're doing this, and this will be a last season, and so the writers and producers were able to do something a bit different with RPM than with the other seasons of Power Rangers. And then you move to Samurai, which is more kid-friendly. It's back in Saban's hands. It's trying to recapture the MMPR-styled humor and the MMPR-styled characterizations. And ultimately, it's not terrible. It's just, it is what it is. And I think had this season had just slight tweaks here and there, it would be way better than what I think. But definitely don't agree with this number 27's placement.
One thing I want to point out, a very common criticism of Samurai is that it is copy and pasted Shinkenger. I have never seen Shinkenger, and truth be told, I probably never will watch it. But I don't think that's a valid criticism. I think what is a valid criticism is talking about how samurai treated its lore and its use of samurais in terms of its writing and casting. That is very valid to talk about. To talk about how they told a story using a specific culture, this being samurai's Japanese culture, and did not capitalize on that. They didn't do anything with it. It was bare basic, bare minimum, bare bones. It was very weak in that regard. And there are plenty of things to say this was wrong. They should not have done this. But what I do not consider a fair argument is simply saying Shinkenger did it better. Because like people love Time Force. Time Force is regarded as an amazing season. I love Time Force. Time Force and Time Ranger are incredibly similar. There is so much overlap there. And no one ever talks about that. No one ever brings it up. So I don't think saying Shinkenger already exists is a fair dismissal of Samurai. Because not everyone's going to watch Shinkenger. Some people only watch Power Rangers. I have never seen Shinkenger. Maybe it is better. Maybe it's like this incredibly fantastic, phenomenal season, and it probably is, considering how everyone praises it. But as someone who's never seen it, I'm not gonna be able to say, yeah, Samurai's bad because Shinkenger exists. It's not a fair argument.
No, and I definitely agree that Power Rangers should live and stand or fall on its own merit. Hey, this Sentai was super cool, but Power Rangers massacred it. Okay, and adaptations should always stand on their own merits. If a book is fantastic but the movie sucks, that's terrible as an adaptation. But on its own, those adaptations should stand or fall without comparing it to whatever source material. And in this case, again, I agree. Sentai should not judge whether or not Power Rangers is good, because at the end of the day, they have some similarities, but they are ultimately two different beings.
Okay, and now moving on, for the three people that are still watching after I dissed Shinkenger, we have Super Samurai. I mean, same basic things apply there. In some cases, I do like to separate the super seasons from the regular ones. Like, for example, Megaforce and Super Megaforce, that's a very distinct shift in quality for me. Dino Charge and Super Dino Charge, that's a very distinct shift in quality. But like the Samurais, they're kind of the same. The Ninja Steels are pretty much the same. Even Beast Morphers isn't too drastic of a shift from season 1 to 2. So in some cases, I think there is merit to separating them. And I mean, technically, it is a complete season, even if it's only 20 episodes. But like, judging wise, there's not much I can say about Samurai that I wouldn't say about Super Samurai. The same pros and cons pretty much exist. Okay, so moving on.
Number 25.
25 is Ninja Steel. I can pretty much agree with this. I liked Ninja Steel. I thought it was fun. It's not necessarily that good, but I thought it was enjoyable. Like, I can give that. It was base level enjoyable. I had fun with the characters. I had fun with the story. The villains were completely terrible. They were awful. Some of the worst villains we've ever had. It was incredibly superficial and basic. Somehow, I think MMPR had more depth than Ninja Steel. It is that basic. Megaforce has more depth than Ninja Steel, I feel. I legitimately think Ninja Steel and Super Ninja Steel are the most basic seasons, but I don't think that's necessarily bad. I think it embraced the fact that it was a basic season and didn't try to be something it wasn't. It was surface level enjoyment. It was fun. I liked the characters. I liked it enough. I found enjoyment. I never wanted to just stop watching. I never wanted to quit. So this is a pretty good placement for it. This is roughly where I would say Ninja Steel goes.
Agree for some parts of that. I'm not a big fan of Ninja Steel or Super Ninja Steel. I think the characters are at their worst. These are some of the worst Rangers we've had. Not necessarily in terms of being Rangers, but in terms of being characters. I'd say it's probably like a tie with the Megaforce Rangers and these Rangers, because they have no real depth to them. You know, the whole thing with Brody trying to find his dad and his brother, Aiden, and then, hey look, Levi's Aiden. And nothing ever comes of that. Hey, they sang a song once. Hey look, it's that same song like 5 episodes later. And in between, very little mentions of them being brothers. Very little mentions of whatever angst or trauma that you would imagine that Brody would have as a Red Ranger, who was a literal child slave for these aliens. That I think they threatened to eat him. Wasn't that like a joke in the first episode?
Not entirely sure, but probably.
Probably. So again, point is, he is a slave. He's working with like these dangerous beings that could kill him, and all these things, and nothing ever comes of it. You would expect him to maybe act as more of a man-child, or be a lot more overly cautious or overly meticulous in planning, but neither of those aspects exist. He's just super average. My question then comes to the lore of Ninja Steel and Super Ninja Steel. Oh, the Ninja Steel Nexus Star grants your greatest wish. And only one of those wishes is ever made. I forget his name, but the Blue Ranger,
Preston.
Preston likes magic. And he gets real magic. And none of the other Rangers ever get any magical powers or any sorts of wish grantedness. Why not have Haley be able to talk with her dog? That'd be interesting for an episode. That'd be funny. Why not have, Yellow Ranger, what's his name?
Calvin.
I was gonna say Charlie. Why not have Calvin be really, really good at computers and become a technopath? There could have been so many things that they could have done with the wish-granting thing, and it's just a one-off, hey, Preston has magic now. Yippee. It's just a lot of wasted potential, a lot of wasted characterization, because there was no characterization. Just these characters just do nothing, and they're just there for children. If you're under the age of 5, you're going to have a great time with this. But otherwise, I really don't think so.
I think it's kind of interesting what you say. And the article here says a similar aspect. The incredible backstory for the Red Ranger. He was raised as a slave on an alien ship, almost never addressed. An actual country star on the team, and within a few episodes, it's treated like no big deal. So you and the article are on the same page. I think it's really interesting that, as I stated, I think Ninja Steel acknowledges it's a basic season. Because in the episode where the team finds out that Levi is actually Aiden, at the end of the episode, they're like, wait, so Levi is Brody's brother who changed his name. How are we going to explain that to people? And then Sarah's just like, or we could just continue calling him Levi and pretend none of this ever happened.
Just because you acknowledge it doesn't make it good or fun.
Like, that's not the exact quote. I'm paraphrasing. But that's basically what they said. They were just like, let's just pretend this never happened.
I mean, yeah, and that's the worst part, is that there's so many things that happen that just kind of get overlooked and erased. Super Ninja Steel. Hey, my dad's back. Maybe he'll be the new mentor now that Mick's gone. Episode 1, bye, I'm gonna go get milk at the grocery store. Mick comes back. Like, he's gone the whole season until the end when he's brainwashed, and then they have to fight him, and, oh no, my dad's such a great ninja warrior. How will we ever beat him?
Earth's greatest ninja, when we have established ninja academies.
This whole season is just hot garbage.
Hey, it gave us Dimensions in Danger.
Which is a mediocre special.
Oh god, Dimensions in Danger is so bad.
When are we reporting on the different specials and anniversary episodes and ranking them? That's going to be a fun episode to talk about.
We can do that at some point. Okay, moving on.
24, Ninja Steel, Super Ninja Steel.
Okay, again, same things. I feel like Super Ninja Steel is slightly better than Ninja Steel for 2 reasons. Reason number 1, it trades out Galvanax for Madame Odious. Unfortunately, it strips away everything that made Odious interesting. When she first appeared in Ninja Steel, she was a cunning general, she was scheming, she wanted to take Galvanax's place, and I mean, she accomplished her goals. But then once she does become the boss, she loses all sense of competence. The other reason I think that Super Ninja Steel is slightly better than Ninja Steel is simply because it gives a bit more focus on the Rangers. Calvin and Haley have a really big focus, and I like them. Preston gets a lot more episodes, and I love Preston. And Brody and Levi are just kind of there.
Yeah, I mean...
Again, they don't really do much in Super Ninja Steel. They got more of a focus in Ninja Steel.
Yeah, Super Ninja Steel is just more of the same. So if you like Ninja Steel, you'll definitely like Super Ninja Steel.
Yeah, so Ninja Steel and Super Ninja Steel both, this is roughly where I would put them. I don't think they're the exact bottom of the barrel, but they're superficial, basic, and nothing more than enjoyable. I can't say anything other than I enjoyed them and I had fun. Which, I mean, is that really a bad thing? Just having fun?
Number 23!
Operation Overdrive. Wrong. Incredibly wrong. No. Operation Overdrive gets way too much hate. It is nowhere near the bottom. It is a flawed season. It has bad characters. I will say that right away. I dislike most of the Rangers. However, you know what makes up for that? The villains are incredible. I love the villains. Well, I love half the villains. The other half are just kind of there. Um, but it's this grand, ambitious season that wants to do so much, and even if it doesn't do it necessarily well, it still manages to do so much that it's managed to do so much right that you can overlook what it does wrong. And even though 3 out of 5 of the Rangers, well, 3 out of 6 of the Rangers are bad, the 3 that are good, Tyzon, Mac, and Rose, are incredibly good. They're astoundingly good.
Tyzon's creepy episode where he's kind of stalking Rose says hello.
Tyzon had some weird issues.
Tyzon's weird cultural appropriation, getting the dreadlocks, copying from Will, says hello.
Tyzon had some writing issues. But as a whole, like, I do not... Most of the time when people dislike a season, I can usually say, yeah, I get why people dislike the season. I can definitely see where the complaints are coming from. But with Overdrive, I'm just like, it wasn't the best thing out there, but it had so much heart and care for it. How can you guys say this is one of the worst seasons? Like, I genuinely do not understand where the hate for Overdrive comes from. Because while I'm not going to claim it to be one of my favorites or one of the best, it's solid. It's good. And it manages to, try to make up for the places where it falls.
I would say that Overdrive, not necessarily bad, but not great. I would put it somewhere in the lower half. Not necessarily this low. Maybe, number... if it's out of 28, I would put it probably at number, 16 or so. A couple spots higher than where it is right now. Just because when it's good, it's pretty good. Problem is, it's not consistently good. And I will say, it does have one of the greatest Red Ranger arcs. Not the best. I'd say that one probably would go to Jungle Fury with Casey. I think his arc is probably the best Red Ranger arc. But to focus on Overdrive, I love the whole Mac as an android thing, because that is not something that's solved in an episode or two. It starts off in that last third, and it takes up until the very end for that to finally actually be fully resolved. It ends with him declaring, hey, I'm a robot. If I die, whatever, but I'm gonna save the world. And he goes, he defeats Floria, spoilers, and, he does sacrifice himself. And then, as a reward for his selflessness and bravery, the Sentinel Knight turns him back into, well, not turns him back, but turns him into a full human. And that is, I think one of the most satisfying ends to a Red Ranger arc. Because he had issues with his dad. He calls him Mr. Hartford. I don't know, did you program this into me? Do I like this because it's programmed? And he has genuine issues. And they do get resolved little by little. But it's not until that end, when his dad gets captured and is almost killed, that he realizes, oh crap, I made a mistake. I love my dad no matter what. He's a great guy. I think that the build up to that is really well done. And I think that's definitely one of the saving graces of that show, is that, hey, you have this Ranger, and there's little hints about it through the whole season, not just coming out of nowhere. But it's definitely really interesting to see not just, Mac, his dad, and, those people interact and figure out what's going on, but the way the other Rangers react to him, too. The way Sentinel Knight reacts to him being, considered a machine and not a person. And overall, I think that is one of the saving graces of this. I love the idea of it. I love the more interconnectedness of the show. How you go from, oh, hey, we found this, and it leads to this, and it leads to that, and that, and that, and that, and it's connecting the dots. I think that's a fantastic idea, making it more serialized. I definitely think the main issue with this, part of it definitely has to be the writing. These are not the greatest Rangers as a whole. The writing kind of weak at some points. Half the villains are fantastic, and the other half are just annoying. And then you have budget issues for Disney. All the behind-the-scenes stuff, I think, really are what make this season, not great for a lot of fans. But I would say trying your best to ignore the behind-the-scenes stuff, trying your best to ignore some of the little writing aspects, and you'll find, a halfway decent season. It's got some great things hidden in there, but definitely not enough to make it in my top half. Definitely in the bottom half for me.
I think that Operation Overdrive has once a Ranger, and therefore it is free from all criticism. You're oddly quiet about that statement.
I don't know how to react.
Good, because we're moving on. Super Mega Force over Overdrive? Bro! Oh, I actually gotta read this one. Okay. When Super Mega Force is good, it's amazing. When it's bad, it just makes you go, why? But you know, the fun kind of why. It's the oddest string of choices ever seen in a Power Rangers season, with arbitrary footage usage, questionable continuity nods, and a finale that should be spectacular, but ends up falling flat. This sounds like it's bad, and yeah, it's low on the list, but there's just something fun in watching how bizarre it all ends up as. The bright spot in all this is the Sixth Ranger, Orion. His debut episode is surprisingly solid, and he gets to have some real character moments. With a tragic backstory along with some wacky misunderstandings of Earth, he always brings a smile to my face. Okay, we'll agree, Orion is a highlight. However, Orion is nowhere near as much of a saving grace as Robo Knight was. Robo Knight carried Megaforce. Orion did not carry Super Megaforce. Secondary, I mean, I kind of like this ideology of just have fun with it, because that's kind of what I said about Ninja Steel, but Super Megaforce isn't as fun as some of these other seasons. Like, it's just not there. I don't understand how it can end up this high when it's legitimately not just bad from a production standpoint and a writing standpoint, but it's just like, it has its moments of entertainment, but other than that, it's just kind of all over the place and messy.
I think, isn't it the first episode with Orion? Oh no, my deep traumatic past. My planet was genocided. I might be the only survivor. I haven't heard someone speak to me in my own language in years. And then hard cut to the next episode, some montage about him living in his school locker, getting dressed and getting ready. It's like the juxtaposition does not work. And even in his premiere episode, you have the juxtaposition of him, traumatic, war survivor, maybe his people were genocided, to then montage shopping. Woo! Haircuts. It's like
They get a haircut.
it's like no, the show does not understand it. If you're gonna have those fun moments, cool, but you need to give the audience time to breathe. You gotta let them have a moment to kind of understand the ramifications of what happened to Orion and his planet, and then slowly start integrating some of the more lighthearted aspects. Because if you do a hard left like that, people are going to fall out the bus, and it's just not going to work out for everyone.
Megaforce also has far more just memeable moments. Because you got, look at my face, do you see any tears? And you got Bloom Flowers Bloom. You got the Robo Knight rap. Like, Megaforce has these moments that are just so hilariously bad that it makes it good. I love those things. And the closest Super Megaforce has is just the Super Saiyan punch. And that's not even hilariously bad, that's just like, what the heck is going on here?
I thought you were going to say the quick costume change.
Okay, that was actually that's a solid moment right there. I love that scene.
It's
When they're trying to take the staff from the monster, and so they have to keep changing costumes. So like they're cheerleading, and then they become a police officer, and they arrest him, and then they're a paramedic. That's a genuinely funny scene.
I don't know about that one, Chief.
But God, you want to know how the level of lazy that Super Megaforce is? You can make all the arguments you want about limited Sentai footage, but the way you know they're lazy is when they can't even make original footage for an original moment. They reused the concert from Samurai.
They did, and they didn't even try to match the footage.
It was the exact same concert from Samurai for the concert in Super Megaforce. That's how lazy it was that an original scene had reused footage from a previous season. Oh god, Super Megaforce is so easy to dunk on. I don't know why it's in 22.
Yeah, I definitely don't agree. Even when it's fun, I wouldn't even say it's fun. I would just say it's passable. But, again, that's just us.
I will say one thing to Super Megaforce's merit, since I have been mocking it pretty harshly. I think as a whole, the fan base kind of set their expectations too high. Like, I mean, I understand, it's the 25th anniversary, and they keep teasing the final battle with all of the previous Rangers, and they keep showing off, like, hints of previous Rangers coming back and stuff. But, I mean, I don't know, I feel like if you go into it knowing there's not going to be some gigantic, over-the-top appearances, or, like, major reoccurring roles, or just the sheer knowledge of knowing the legendary battle is only going to be the short moment at the end. I think going into it knowing that, rather than expecting this grand thing that never comes, I think that kind of takes away a bit of the negativity surrounding it. It's acknowledging this is what we got. Let's look at what we got and not what we could have had.
To an extent, yeah, I agree. Never buy onto the hype train because it always derails, and you find yourself wondering why. Oh God, why? But you know, it is what it is. We got what we got, and at this point, all we can do is really stop and think and realize, hey, are we really getting angry and giving people death threats over this show made for 5-year-olds?
God, my voice is going to be sore for the rest of this video because I laughed way too hard. But let's keep going.
Number 21.
21, Mystic Force. Mystic Force, I'm in a similar boat to Overdrive. I think it gets too much hate. Mystic Force is a season that I like, but I have difficulty expressing what's necessarily good about it. Because the characters are nice, but they never really get a focus other than Nick. The villains are nice, but they don't stick around long enough and are ultimately not too memorable compared to other people. The plot's pretty good, but it falls apart incredibly fast and has a really rushed ending. It's like for everything I praise about it, there's a serious drawback that I just can't ignore. I think it's good enough, but man, I wish it was better. Because, I feel like if Mystic Force just had a bit of a better foundation, if it was structurally better, and it had better writing, it would easily be in my top 5. I really love the aesthetics, I love the themes, I love what they were going for. It just didn't work all too well.
Definitely agree. I think Mystic Force, again, I would put it somewhere in the middle. It's not horrible, but it's also not stand out. When it's good, it has some really solid moments. Some of the characters are really great together. Some characters needed more development. You have Chip, who's really into the D&D stuff, the magical stuff, Harry Potter, that kind of mythology, that kind of world building. And yet, other than the vampire episode, his knowledge never really comes into play. If anything, I feel like the best way for this to have worked is have Chip be the leader because he has the most experience with this, even if it is in a fantastical realm. Or if you're not going to go that route, then at the very least say, hey, Chip, everything you know is wrong. Here's the real mythology behind him. And have him kind of get rid of these preconceived notions he has and have him grow to accept these new facts or what have you. And that way the team as a whole can grow to learn the same information and use it in the same way. But I honestly think Chip could have had a much bigger role, and he should have had a bigger role. Because that's just who he is. He is fun. He's one of my favorite Yellow Rangers. Xander, one of my favorite Green Rangers. Maybe if you're not going to give Chip the leadership role, give it to Xander and have him realize what a real leader is, because he's always being supervisor to his crew in the record store by just sitting around reading a magazine. So maybe give him a real leadership position so that he learns, hey, a leader leads, not orders. We could have done something. You could have had some kind of interactions with Lily. How I really like what they did with her. She didn't want to be a vampire queen, and so she decides to be a person, but by then the Rangers already know she's a villain, and so they ostracize her, and she meets up with the other ostracized group, and, they do their own thing, and I think that's awesome. That's fantastic. The Phineas the Troblin, he was my favorite character. He is fun. That's how you do, a comedic character. Have him be actually fun. He's great. When he's fighting the villain, one of the hench people, I forgot the context, but he's fighting one of them, and then he turns to Lily, and he's like, hey, I'm wiping the floor with him, and he's literally dragging him by the feet and wiping the floor. That is fun. That's awesome. Have more things like that. But to kind of circle back around, because I've just been rambling now, is that I think despite its flaws, again, definitely middle road season. It has really good moments. Rangers have some good moments here and there, but in general, I would say more flaws than things that go right. Way too much of an overfocus on, Nick. So definitely lean back on the Nick, give the other Rangers a chance to shine, and you could have had a much better season.
Yeah, I think just to very quickly add on to something you said, specifically Xander. Xander's my favorite character in the season. And something that always bugs me is that in the season finale, after the Master's defeated and they're all celebrating at the Rockporium, apparently he got promoted to manager. And it's like, oh, that's cool, great for you. Where was the character arc? Like, that feels like a natural end to his character arc. Is him realizing, hey, I haven't been the best to my friends, to my coworkers. Because it's true. Whenever they have to do tasks around the Rockporium, he's always just kind of leaning back, and they're like, "Why aren't you doing anything?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm supervising." He always had this kind of full of himself attitude, but he did it in a friendly, charming way because that's the kind of guy he is. And so I feel like that's just, it's a natural character arc for him to kind of realize, man, I've been messed up, I haven't been there for you guys. And then it feels earned when he gets promoted to manager. But instead it's just like, hey, Xander, you're manager now. Aren't you happy? Yeah. As a whole, Mystic Force is just kind of missed opportunities. And I mean, again, similar to what I said for Super Mega Force, I don't like to think about what could have been. I like to see what we got. But at the same time, when they tease what could have been, it's hard not to,
Exactly.
Okay, so moving on, we have...
Number 20!
For 20, we have Dino Supercharge. I roughly, more or less, agree with this placement. Dino Supercharge is a step down from Dino Charge, but I don't think it's a drastic step down. I feel like a lot of people absolutely hate Dino Supercharge, and there are so many things wrong with it compared to Dino Charge. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think that it's drastically inferior. I feel that they're comparable to quality level. It's just they could not keep said quality consistent. Dino Supercharge is not as consistent as Dino Charge is, but it's not inherently much worse. I think the big complaints about it commonly are that it doesn't have many plot points, and then there's also Arcanon, who is just a terrible villain, a major step down from both Sledge and Heckle Snide. But aside from that, and aside from the ending, which is absolutely atrocious and one of the worst endings in a Power Rangers season ever, I think there's still enough good things about Dino Charge. The characters are still fun, they're still written well, the episodes are still enjoyable. I think there's enough good there that even if it's not as good as Dino Charge, it's not completely terrible either.
Yeah, I'd say the first half of Supercharge is good. It is, relatively similar to Dino Charge quality. And Dino Charge, when it was airing, it was one of my favorite seasons. It was up there. It was very solid. But yeah, I definitely had to say the second half of Dino Supercharge, not as great as the first. You have way too many things happening. It feels like there's more filler, and I'm not sure if there actually is more filler, if it just feels that way. But you have, these plots that just kind of go nowhere. You have characters that are consistent, but aren't doing, growing past whatever it is they are, right? There's not too much interaction between Tyler and his dad. They figure out who he is, where he is, all that stuff, and that's fantastic. That's awesome. But then afterwards, there's, not much, one-on-one interactions. There's no real, father-son bonding moments. They don't elaborate on what the relationship is now, and it's, it's not as great as it could have been. Definitely hard to agree. That ending, absolutely terrible. By the end, these are the worst Rangers in existence. They lose. It doesn't seem genuine to me. It doesn't seem satisfying to me, because by going back 65 million years into the past, they made sure the events of the season never happened. And so now there's no point to watch the season because it never happened anyway. Even if it was in an alternate universe, doesn't matter because, hey, the events are pointless because they have to go back in time. Every single win they get is ultimately useless because they lose at the end and have to time travel to win the day. And that is just disappointing writing right there. It's not fun to see the Rangers have to go do these shenanigans in the past. It's just, a thing that happens and it's not great. I'm tired of these time travel plots to save the day at the last minute. They're not fun.
I think Heckle carries my enjoyment of Dino Supercharge in full honesty. Alright, moving on to 19.
Number 19!
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 2. Okay, interesting. I always have a bit of difficulty with separating the MMPRs because I legitimately need to rewatch them. So, going just off of my memory and kind of general feeling since the last time I've seen them, which has been quite a bit, Season 2 was alright. It started off very strong. The introduction of Zed, that was a major game changer. It was really strong in how it just completely shifted the entire dynamic. The tone of the series, you could tell, had a huge shift there. And Zed carried for a very long time. But then, real world factors, parents complaining, the show had to become a lot more silly. Zed had to become more silly. It didn't pick up again until Rita and Zed's marriage. That's when things really started picking up again in quality. But as a whole, I'd say season 2 is middle ground. I mean, I don't hold many of the MMPR seasons too high, so I'd probably put this a little bit lower myself. But it's alright, I guess.
Yeah, what I would say is that season 2, if I was ranking all 3, I would put... I'm not sure if I would do 1, 3, 2, or 3, 1, 2, but the point is 2 definitely I would have to say is the weakest of the 3 seasons. Mainly because, it has the issues of the Rangers leaving. You have Trini, Jason, and Zach leaving, and then they're replaced with Aisha, Rocky, and...
How do you forget Adam?
Adam!
How do you forget Adam?
I forgot Adam. I feel bad. Anyway, the point is, you have that thing behind the scenes issues going on, and you can tell that it's very strangely edited. You can tell something's wrong, but, you won't be able to tell right away, hey, these Rangers are replaced, because they do have shots of, Zach, Trini, and Jason running around. You have shots with them, and it's really odd, and the fact that, they fumble it a bit halfway through after that, it takes it takes a few episodes for a show to go back and pick up the quality that it was. Just because, you have these brand new members and they kind of have to start from scratch. Tommy's the leader now as the White Ranger, and that's really just as an excuse to kind of, ensure that when Rocky takes over, you don't have someone new and experienced be the leader. But overall, I just think that, it's not as great because of this change. Once they get settled into their roles in season 3, it gets much better because the characters know what they're doing. They know their relationship with each other, and it's a lot more fun by then. But it is very much a struggle to get to the point where the new Rangers are able to not just fill in the shoes of their predecessors, but become their own people. Because at first it just kind of seems like this is Jason Light, this is Trini Light, this is Zach Light. And it's just not as fun with those changes.
Okay, moving on. We have
Number 18.
Wild Force.
No! Wild Force. Wild Force is top half. It is top half. I would venture even to say maybe like number 11. No, it is good. It is. The only thing that keeps us down is Kite. If Kite were not in this would be a perfect season. Damn it, Kite. BRB gonna go throw some trash and pollute the earth just to go kill a child.
Just buy an NFT. That'll be faster.
All right, I'm gonna buy the Ranger one. BRB. No, but okay. Getting back on topic though, I really do like Wild Force. It is just the right mix of fun and serious to me. The characters are really fun. They are enjoyable. I just wish some of the characters had more development. I don't like how, right away Cole is made the leader because the lion is the king of the jungle. That's dumb. Taylor has military experience. She's got attitude. She was the first ranger recruited. She has experience as a ranger. She's got the leadership experience. She should be the ranger leader through and through until the end. Adding on to that, I really like Jindrax and Toxica. They are the two best general characters we've had. Almost, I'm not gonna say they're the best ever, but they were the best for a long time. I really like them, and I love how at the end they just kind of gave up and went their own ways and did their own thing and left peacefully. I really enjoyed that. Merrick, definitely one of the best Six Rangers. I love that his arc is not just I need to learn to be a team player. But it's I need to atone for my sins. I don't deserve to be with you. Because it shows that, even after his arc's over, he's not joining them. Maybe he still feels a little bit of shame. Maybe he just doesn't feel comfortable with them. Or maybe he's decided, you know what? I'm a team, but I live over here. This is my area. This is what I'm going to do. But I'm still a team player. I'm just not living with you guys. But either way, I think he's a very fantastic, Sixth Ranger. He's awesome.
Definitely agree. This is way too low. I don't think Wild Force hits my top 10, but it's close to there. It is bordering around maybe 13 or 14. Maybe even 12. I'd have to put thought into it. But rough numbers, that's where I would put it. I love the group dynamic of the Rangers. These are some of my favorite Rangers as a group. Because, like, they each have, like, a different bond with each other. They have nice interactions. They have several different episodes together. Like, they just mix and mash so well. And individually, their personalities are fun and memorable.
Max and Danny are the greatest bromance out of any pair of male Rangers in all of Power Rangers. I said it, they are hashtag relationship goals. Like, Max, he's an awesome wingman for Danny, and then Danny's, like, nervous and shy, and they pump each other up, and they're fun, and, they're awesome. And then at the end of the season, during the epilogue, they go on a journey across the world together. Like, that's awesome. That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is fun. They are awesome together. They're so much fun.
Yeah. I think what holds Wild Force back from being top 10 is, as previously mentioned, Kite brings it down so much. It also, the ending is kind of weak. It doesn't nail the ending too much. It has some good moments. Like, you know, when the Wild Zords die and then they're in the rain and they're still fighting. Like, that is iconic. That is powerful. But as a whole, the episodes leading up to the ending and the finale itself don't entirely stick the landing. Hard
agreed. They fumbled that ending quite a bit. I really don't like that Deus Ex Machina of the Wild Zords just magically showing up. I kind of wish that the Rangers, you know, because they're standing up, because they have that courage, their natural spirit energy thing makes them Rangers again, and not just a, hey, here comes everyone from the sky, look, hey, Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, I feel like it would have been much more impactful if the Wild Zords stayed dead, and the Rangers won through their inner spirit. Like, I understand what they were going for, but I feel like as looking at it from a writing perspective, it definitely feels weak that, you know, everything is completely hopeless, and then Wild Zords just come back. Everyone's absolutely revived. Everything's okay now. Like, a bittersweet ending would have worked really nice and would have been so powerful for the theme of the season. Because a lot of the season is bittersweet if you really think about it.
Right, you have Cole's parents, they're dead. So at the end, he kind of puts, you know, the flower on their gravestone. Their friend, the doctor, who ends up becoming Master Org, you know, it's kind of sad because he was this great guy. He was, you know, like a good person, generally good. He got corrupted by his jealousy and hatred. He became a monster and then died. So when Cole, you know, gives him that flower on his headstone too, he says, you know, I hope you found your peace too. And I think that's amazing. You know, he's able to kind of forgive this man who killed his parents and did so much harm and, you know, move on from that. And I think it would have been fantastic if they continued that idea with, you know, the Wild Zords being dead. Like, hey, it's terrible. You know, our Zords, our friends are dead. They died in the line of battle, but we're going to honor them every day of our life by, you know, having the courage of a lion or the speed of an eagle or, you know, whatever Power Rangers thing they want to say. And so I think definitely hard agree there. Having it be a bit more bittersweet. You know, maybe all the Zords other than the main five are dead, you know, then at least you have those main five still alive because those represent, you know, the Rangers. Or maybe the Rangers, by channeling their inner spirit, are able to revive the Zords because, hey, humanity never gives up. All that good stuff, right? But at this point, it is what it is. The final thing I will say that boosts this up so much more, Forever Red, best anniversary episode, don't at me.
I mean,
don't at me. Don't at me.
It has reinforcements from the future. I think that's more of a selling point, but you do you. Also,
don't at me.
Fact check. Spirit of a Lion is Jungle Fury, not Wild Force. Fake
I
fan.
don't know.
Fake fan. Moving on.
I don't know. They're all the same. Number 17.
Power Rangers Oh my.
No, this is top 5. This is top 3. Yo, SPD top 3. Don't at me.
I will hard agree. SPD is a top 3 season. Okay, let's see this. Okay. Well, its premieres.
I think I mean like beginnings, part 1 and 2.
I mean, yeah, but it's weird grammar. Well, the premiere is extremely strong. As the season goes on, SPD fails to deliver. After the first 10 or so episodes, the series loses all forward momentum and instead runs in place with characters learning the same lessons over and over and just being dicks to each other. Some of this can be put aside when we look at the amount of love put on screen by executive producer Greg Arnowitz and the cast stellar portrayals. No matter what else you say about the season, it looks amazing. Sir, what season did you watch? I genuinely do not see this in SPD at all. SPD has one of the most coherent narratives of a season. Grump's plan is an overarching plot that continues in the background of pretty much every episode.
He's always doing something. If he's setting a monster track over here so that he can sneak around and steal this synthetic blood. If he's stealing diamonds, he's making sure that his henchmen can get away with at least a few crates of them. If he's attacking this area over here, it's so that he can take this. He is actually very smart about that. Mm-hmm. The only thing I have to say, like, against SPD, two things. Just two things that don't make it a perfect season. Mm-hmm. Grum being controlled by the Magnificent. Like, Omni being a thing is just, that is asinine. That's stupid. No, let's not. And number two, Sam. Or the lack thereof. Sam is just a little ball of light or the Omega Ranger. There is no in-between. And I think he lacks character development because of that. I'd be totally cool with him being stuck in the suit forever if he had character development. If he was like, you know, more than just, hey, I'm from the future, I'm strong, etc., etc. And I think that they did that well for his premiere episode, having him kind of realize, hey, you know, just because I'm from the future and I have better tech doesn't necessarily mean I'm a better ranger, and have him learn to be a better ranger through actually being part of a team and making that an actual arc instead of just a 2-episode thing because, you know, it's the first episode with him as a ranger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Sam is definitely a non-character. He is there to fight, but he does not receive development or even have that many memorable interactions. But putting Sam aside, the other 6 Rangers are some of the strongest Rangers in terms of growth. They all grow so much, and if you look at them from the first episode to the last episode, it's apparent where that growth was and when it happened. It happens gradually over the course of the series. And it's incredibly powerful because, like, they go through so much and it changes their perspective on several different things. So, sometimes including their perspective on their fellow Rangers. Even Kruger, even though he's the commander, he learns to accept, I'm not always right. Sometimes I act out of anger, sometimes I do the wrong thing. They're not being insubordinate. They're right, and I have to accept that.
And then you have solid Rangers as individual characters, not just as Rangers. Sky, like, at the beginning, he's very closed off, very cold, callous, calculating because, hey, I need to be number one, I need to do the best, I'm going to be red like my dad. And then later on, about halfway through the season, we find out he used to have a best friend who, you know, like, was presumed dead, and then he comes back, and then it turns out he's a spy. And so that's why when his friend was presumed dead, that's kind of why he became cold and calculated, because, hey, you know, I lost my best friend. There's a little bit of trauma in place, so he kind of realizes, I can't just go around, you know, being nice to people. That's going to get me killed like it got my friend killed. I need to step up. I need to be better. So he devotes himself to the rules, to procedures, to being calculating the way we see him in episode 1. And that starts an opening with him. We start seeing him open up with the other Rangers. In the episode with the asteroid, aptly titled Asteroid, you have both Sky and
Jack.
I'm sorry. You have Sky and Jack, both of them kind of fighting, say, in the pilot seat of the SWAT Megazord gun formation, to see who's gonna, you know, blow it up. I'm the better pilot, but I'm the better shot. And so there's that back and forth, and at the end, when Jack is presumed dead, you know, Sky says something along the lines of, you know, it was an honor to fight with him, he was, you know, a great ranger, he was amazing, and then Jack comes back and he's like, what was that about me being a great ranger? And that's fun, because you can tell that, you know, Sky admits, hey, we might not agree on everything, but damn, I respect you as a ranger and as a person, and that's, for Sky, amazing praise. You have the episode where you find the killer of Jack's dad. Or not Jack's dad, Sky's dad. And he's, you know, Sky's trying to get revenge for his dad. And we see him talk about his dad and he gets sad and he cries. And then at the end, Jack gives him the Red Ranger morpher and says, hey, bring him in. And Sky becomes the Red Ranger for just one moment. And he says, you know, I don't care what color I am, I'm a ranger, I'm honoring my dad. And you see this, again, reflected at the end of the episode, where Kruger, or the end of the season, excuse me, when Kruger says, if I were to appoint Sid as Red Ranger, would you lead her into battle? Would you follow her into battle? And Sky says, I would follow anyone you think was worthy of the color red. And that just shows exactly how much he's evolved, because he realizes, I don't need to be red to honor my dad. I need to be the best damn ranger I can be. And if I'm blue, if I'm green, I'm pink, I'm purple, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do the best I can because that's what my dad would have wanted. And he moves away from wanting to be red. And he's one of the greatest blues ever. And I could ramble on for hours and hours and hours just on Sky, but he's amazing.
Yeah. One thing I want to say that I absolutely love about Jack is the fact that his character ending. He quits being a ranger because he wants to do more. A lot of times in Power Rangers, there's this kind of ideology that, being a ranger is who you are. You have things like once a ranger, always a ranger, or, rangers together forever, stuff like that. It kind of presents this idea, you will always be a Power Ranger. And sure, we've had people leave the role of Power Rangers before. Back in MMPR, Zordon told them, you aren't meant to be Power Rangers forever. You're graduating, go live your life. So it's not something completely new, but just the sheer fact that he decides, I love being a Power Ranger, but I want to help people on a personal level. I want to do more with my life. I want to truly reach people. And his wish is respected. Kruger's against it at first, but at the end, he ultimately decides, I have to let you go. You need to live your life. And it's so rewarding, especially considering where he came from. He always wanted to help people. He was just doing it in the wrong way at first.
Did we fall in love with nostalgized propaganda?
If people didn't stop watching the video for the Shinkenger part, they're stopping watching the video right for this part.
Hashtag Ballin supports propaganda.
SPD is a top 3 season.
It really is.
I love SPD, man.
Also, Bridge, best Green Ranger, and the first canonically Jewish Ranger. Is he the only Jewish Ranger? Like canonically?
Canonically, perhaps, but I'm not entirely sure.
Awesome. Yo. Hey, yo. When you're watching this 3 years from now in 2025, and we talk about Bridge being the only canonical Jewish Ranger, I hope that they go ahead, Hasbro goes ahead and makes another canonical Jewish Ranger, just so we can say there's 2 now.
Alright, so moving on, we have...
Number 16!
Jungle Fury at 16? No,
that's top 5. That is top 5.
Jungle Fury is easily top 10, maybe top 5.
I would say the only issues it had, and this is something that affected a lot of people because of just the timing of it, the writer's strike of the time that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, whoever was in charge of writing did a pretty decent job because it's not too easy to tell the difference. Usually when there's behind-the-scenes writing issues, you can tell that there's behind-the-scenes writing issues.
Yeah, I mean, the article itself mentions the writer's strike. But, even with that, I definitely think Jungle Fury deserves much more. Once again, speaking on the Rangers, I love their growth, especially Casey. Casey is one of, potentially, the best Red Ranger, because he starts off a nobody, a beginner.
He's a cub.
Yeah. And then he's thrust into this role of leadership, and he's like, I don't know how to do that. I'm not supposed to be here. And he has to learn how to fight. He has to catch up to the level of the others. And then, he really finds himself. And this is really cemented at the end, when they're taking their tests to get their master stripes, and he doesn't get his. He fails. And it's like, that doubt, that uncertainty that he has about himself. Were they wrong this whole time? Maybe this wasn't for me after all.
And I really love how RJ takes that leadership role because he's the mentor of the season and a fellow Ranger. And he tells Casey, I have nothing else left to teach you. If you failed, it's because you did something wrong. Think about your lessons and figure out where you went wrong. And what he went wrong was in copying the others, not doing his own thing. And he realizes, hey, I need to be my own person. I need to be my own Ranger. I can't just follow the others. I can't just do what my master's telling me to do. I have to go out and become my own person and step out of their shadow. And so after all this development, he realizes, hey, we need to save Jared, because this is something that's been going on season-wide, is Casey feeling guilt over what happened to Jared, the one who was supposed to be presumably red before Casey was. And so he realizes, hey, I'm going to save Jared. This was my mistake, my fight now. I have to rescue him from the darkness. And he goes to fight Daishi, and he takes a battle to Daishi, and ultimately that's what wins him his master stripes, because he goes out on the initiative. He was right about Jared, he saves him, and, they end up everyone working together to defeat Daishi, and they say it, everyone's happy. And if it wasn't for Casey taking this initiative, who knows what could have happened, right? And so that character development to go from, guys, what do I do? Hey, RJ, tell me what to do. Hey, RJ, teach me a lesson. To, I don't care who's trying to stop me. I am doing what I think is right. And it's absolutely fantastic because you do see over the course of the season that development. The only thing I would have to say that really drops this from being like a top 3 and just leaves it middling in the top 5, maybe top 6, is the way the Rangers treat Fran. I don't like how they treat Fran. They are so rude to her. They are so mean to her. The episode after she finds out that they're the Rangers, they try to bully her, presumably to make her quit and leave so she doesn't bother them. But just tell her, hey, this is a secret. Like, glad you know. Help us out, keep the place running. The fact that they abandon her so many times when they have to do other things, not necessarily related to saving the day as Rangers, but it just shows how little respect they have for her. And that just really, really rubs me the wrong way. I don't like how they treat her.
It's okay, because she goes on a hiking trip with Dominic at the end.
Always remember that To Kill a Mockingbird is all about standing up and doing the right thing.
Oh god, I remember reading that book, and it was certainly a book, but yeah, I think as a whole, the characters are nice. I love Daishi / Jared. Camille is great. The other villains, the Phantom Generals, they're kind of okay. They're not really memorable, but they're not really supposed to be memorable. They're just supposed to be powerful figures that aid Daishi and also contrast with Jared and, push further his arc. But Jared, Daishi, and Camille, standout villains, very strong. I like the Rangers. RJ is incredibly enjoyable, a lot of fun.
I'd say RJ is one of, if not the best mentor characters in all of Power Rangers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Fran and Dominic are cute.
Yeah.
It looks like he's more in love with that pizza than she is with him. Okay.
Alright.
Moving on.
15.
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 1. This is actually roughly where I would put it. Maybe a little bit lower. I don't know if MMPR Season 1 is exactly top half, but it's mid. It is very mid. I'm just gonna say it. People hold this season up because of nostalgia. It has its merits. If this was a terrible season, if there was nothing good about it, Power Rangers would not have been a success. Power Rangers succeeded. It was a massive phenomenon. It blew up. It was huge. It was everywhere. It kind of dwindled down over the years. It's a little more niche now. But the fact that it was as big as it was, and the fact that it became the brand that it did, that would not have happened if MMPR was completely terrible. If this was just garbage, nothing good about it, there is no way we would be making this video right now.
Personally, I think MMPR should be a little bit higher. Probably around the top 12-ish. So, just a couple places higher.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has a lot of charm. It is very much a product of its time. It's very 90s. And, you can't really do anything about that because it was made in the 90s. It's a product of its time.
Yeah.
And I feel that what it does badly isn't terrible. I think what it does great, it does great. Whatever great things we have to say about future seasons, in some way, shape, or form, Mighty Morphin influence. Whether they're copying it to try and make something good, or they're moving away from it to try and make something better. And I think MMPR, just season 1 specifically, by the sheer nature of it being the first season of the first show of Power Rangers, you can't escape its influence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you try to ignore that influence and judge it as its own thing, I think it is in that lower half, definitely like around the 12-ish range. It does some things that are very fun, some things that are very campy, and some things that are very serious. It was one of the first shows to take its target audience, like the 10 under demographic roughly, and give them an epic 5-part show. It gave us Green with Evil parts 1 through 5. Lots of shows at the time weren't all about that. A lot of shows at the time were much more 2-parters, maybe 3-parters. You had some animated shows that had this overarching arc that was multiple episodes long, but this was the first time that a live action show was doing it. And so, to me, that just shows how seriously the writers were taking their audience. Sure, you had silly episodes here and there, but again, you can't be all doom and gloom, especially with that 10 and under demographic. So I definitely think while it does some great things, the things that it middles on, not horrible enough to bring it down lower, but definitely not great enough to bring up higher than roughly around that 12 to 13 spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one last thing before we move on to say, when it's good, it's really good. Green with Evil is a standout. Even comparing it to later seasons, it still holds up incredible. But a lot of the other times, it's just average, mediocre, and mid, and it's so hard to binge watch. You just can't get through more than like 5 or 6 episodes of the show because they're all the same.
They're all very similar, all have that same type of monster of the week. Here's a lesson. Here's what I learned. And while we understand, again, product of its time, we understand certain demographic it was aiming for, you can still tell great stories without that. Again, to show its own example, and this is the last time I'm going to bring it up again, Green with Evil. It's just one of the great things, because that's the first few times that the Rangers actually lose. They go loss after loss after loss. And if Rita wasn't too greedy, she could have actually conquered the Earth.
I'm just saying, destroying the Sword of Darkness should not have broken the curse, because the Sword of Darkness was not what turned him evil. Rita's spell was, but we're not going to have that conversation.
That's a conversation for another day. Number 14!
13 and 14 are actually tied. Beast Morpher seasons 1 and 2. I'm gonna agree. I like Beast Morphers a lot, but I don't think it's top 10. Maybe I would put it at about 11, 12, but this isn't too far off. So roughly here, same.
Yeah, I agree. The only issues I have with it that would put it a bit lower for myself, I don't like the way they use fan service. I'm not a fan of the Ranger Vault and how much that was an over-encompassing arc for Season 2. I don't like how it was all, hey, here's this Ranger tech. Hey, look at this Ranger tech. Hey, you remember this Ranger tech? Hey, here's this Ranger character. Sprinkle it in here and there, fine, that's awesome. But to focus so much on it and to not elaborate on the lore, they have SWAT gear from RPM. Why did they send SWAT gear like 3, 4, 5 years into the past?
You said RPM, not SPD.
SPD, whatever. Point is, why are they sending tech back into the past? We know because of Time Force, that's a big time no-no. You're not supposed to do that no matter the situation, right? Just the fact that the Time Force Rangers, were in the past goes to show you that, hey, this is dangerous, future's changing, finish your mission fast. And somehow we're okay with that stuff in the past now? Somehow we're okay with cross-dimensional travel, which was stated to be dangerous because it kind of ruins the fabric of time and space? And yet we're okay to give them morphers. And yet it's okay to, like, cross-communicate with them. It's just, to me, it shows style, but no substance. It's flashy, it's cool to look at, but when you actually stop and think about it, it's not that great. I would have been much more content with a couple pieces here and there with more specific purpose. When Devin reaches out to the Morphin Grid for their crossover with all the Dino Rangers, why specifically is Jason chosen? How did the Morphin Grid, like, summon Jason? Why this? Why that? If it's Jason, is that Trini and Zach? Right? How do they have their Zords back? How are all these things happening? Why were the Dino Rangers specifically chosen to fight? To me, all that stuff just either come up with a better explanation or try a bit harder to make it as less distracting as you can. And so to me, I would definitely say Season 2 specifically, a bit lower, but if we're bunching them, both of them together, I'd say this is a decent spot because Season 1, very solid. Watching it week by week when it was coming out, it was very great. Season 1, stand out. It was awesome. You had a whole bunch of great things that were happening. You had one of the first actual human-like characters being exploded. So you have Roxy, and she's in her human avatar self. She's not wearing her mask or anything. And so Ravi kills her. Like, he straight up, kills her, and she's the evil avatar, so clearly nothing bad happens to the human Roxy. But just the fact that you have a human female character being exploded that way, and they don't have their face hidden, or they don't have armor or anything, like disguising what they look like, I think is fascinating, because that's never been done before in Power Rangers. But, ultimately, it is what it is. I don't like the fan service, but I do really like what it does well. Because when it's good, it is fantastic. But to me, when it does things subpar, it just drags it down way too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I definitely say the characters are solid for the most part. I like the Rangers. I wish there was more to them. I feel like they're bordering on well-rounded characters, but there's just not enough given to them, especially in Season 2. I don't know what it is about Season 2, but the way it handled the plot kind of put the Rangers' development in the background. It was much more plot and lore focused and character focused, which can work in some instances, but in this one, not too much. And Blaze and Roxy are great villains, but Evox is not, and I don't care that he's Venjix. That doesn't make him a better villain in any way. He's not good. I will say, though, knowing the Austin St. John and Jason David Frank beef, I'm just imagining when Jason went to go pick up the Dino Thunder Rangers, he was just like, I'm here to steal your kids. and then he threw the portal before Tommy could do anything.
Yeah, that would be funny.
But anyways, yeah, it's definitely it has its flaws. It has a solid foundation, but not enough there. I don't particularly mind the fan service as much as others do, but I wish it was done better as well.
Number 12.
12 is Lost Galaxy. Okay, I'm going to get this out of the way, and then I'm going to shut up. Lost Galaxy is boring.
It has plot issues. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It has some arcs that go on too long and don't amount to anything. But the problem with that is the behind-the-scenes issues. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. Just because there's behind-the-scenes issues doesn't mean, you should excuse whatever issues it causes in the show. But from what I understand, when it came to writing the show, there were some times where there were rewrites at the same time that they were filming the episode. And so, lots of issues, lots of things going on that, probably shouldn't have been happening, and the show kind of suffers for it. I'm not necessarily saying it should be number 12, maybe a bit lower, but I understand why the show is the way it is, and ultimately, I enjoy it. I think it's fun. It does have a little bit of transition pain between the Zordon era and the non-Zordon era, and so I would say, yeah, this is maybe a little bit lower. I'd put it maybe around the 15th spot. 13 to 15-ish range, just because it does have quite a few issues when it comes to being written. I'm not a big fan of how they resolve certain arcs. I'm not a big fan of Terra Venture. How much of it is organic? How much of it is synthetic? Did they take actual terrain from Angel Grove or other parts of Earth and stick it in there? Just the logistics behind it. Again, just some things you just gotta question. Other things you gotta go with. And in this case, there's too many questions to be had that you can just kind of go with it.
Remember when I said Ninja Steel was basic, but I enjoyed it? Lost Galaxy would be at the bottom of the list, because being boring is the worst thing you can possibly do.
Number 11!
Lightspeed Rescue. I'm gonna agree. I think Lightspeed Rescue is borderline top 10, but not quite there. I like the characters. The Rangers have a nice group dynamic to them. They aren't necessarily too developed, but they didn't really need that much development. They're already interesting characters to begin with.
And they're adults, which is a first for Power Rangers.
Mm-hmm. The villains are hit or miss. We have Diabolico, who is a massive hit, and then we have Vibra, who can't act.
Something, Vipari.
The Vipari. But yeah, I think it's a solid season. There's a lot of great things about it. The plot's basic, but it didn't need really to be that deep of a plot or that intricate or complex. The characters are nice. The villains work well enough for the most part. It's good. I can't praise it as much as other seasons that are top 10, but there's nothing that really detracts from it. It's not poorly written in many ways. It doesn't have notable flaws. It's enjoyable, it's solid, and I think for what it is, yeah, borderline top 10.
It is top 10 for one reason, and one reason only. 6 words are all that's needed. Carter Grayson, Lightspeed Rescue, Red Ranger. The end.
Okay. Oh, actually, before we move on, Commander Mitchell, I think, is really where we start to get a foundation for standout mentors. Because Zordon, for as much as I like Zordon, and for as much as I think he set a good standard for mentors, his mentoring was kind of hit or miss at times.
Definitely agree.
Yeah, I think Commander Mitchell is definitely where we start to get. This is the Rangers' mentor, and he advises them, but he also, he tells them when they're wrong, when they're out of line, things like that. The notable example, when Carter questions him about the fire, you should have put out the fire. But the monster, the barrels were right there.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's one of the things I really do enjoy about it is that Captain Mitchell, he is a leader. He's the leader. He's the captain of this organization. He's the one making the final decisions, final calls. Rangers have to listen to him. It'd be great if he kind of elaborated more on why he wants the Rangers to do things, but he shouldn't have to. The Rangers should just go ahead and listen and do as they're told, because this is, an operation, a rescue operation. This is a government sanction, so it's like there's a clear chain of command. You gotta do what you gotta do. After the fact, if he needs to explain it, he will, but you gotta learn to listen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then also, just brief note, Joel and Miss Fairweather had a very good plot together. It was a natural progression. It doesn't feel like a forced romance where she never liked him and then suddenly in the last episode they're together. You can very clearly see his growth and how he approaches her and how she warms up to him through that growth.
Definitely. One of the good things about the season, but,
Yeah.
I think we've said pretty much all the great things there is to say about it.
Excuse me? Titanium Ranger?
Oh, right.
US exclusive?
Chad? Hello, Chad? An actual Chad Ranger.
We're-
An actual Chad Ranger.
Okay, we're moving on.
Number 10.
10, Dino Charge. I don't really have too much to say about Dino Charge because we kind of spoke on it with Supercharge. Again, I don't think Supercharge and Dino Charge are too drastic in qualities. This was a massive difference. Supercharge was like what, 18?
I believe so. Let me check. 20.
From 20 to 10, a 10 episode jump. That is a drastic shift in quality, and I don't think that drastic shift is represented in the season itself. I think there is a difference in quality, with Dino Charge being fundamentally better in every way, but I don't think it's 10 season drastic difference. Dino Charge has good characters, enjoyable characters, a nice plot. Sledge is an amazing villain, and I pray that Dino Fury Season 2 will find some way to bring him back.
2 words that explain why Dino Charge is so good. Sir Ivan.
Sir, it's a bomb is 3 words.
Sir Ivan.
Ivan is amazing. I love Ivan.
Ivan is fantastic. I love Ivan. I think is probably one of the best Gold Rangers ever. Antonio's up there, but it's Ivan. He's fantastic. He's awesome. He's fun.
Yeah, Dino Charge definitely incredibly solid. Maybe I would put it in my top 10, but even if I didn't, it would border top 10. So this is a great placement for it.
Definitely agree. Number 9.
9, Dino Fury Season 1. Okay. I am of the belief that Dino Series Season 1 is a top 5 season. I may change my mind when Season 2 comes out, because again, I don't necessarily like separating seasons unless there's a reason to, with a drastic quality shift. But as is, Dino Fury Season 1 was everything I have wanted in Power Rangers for so long. I've always enjoyed the seasons, even the weaker ones like Megaforce and Ninja Steel. I don't think there are bad seasons, unless your name is Lost Galaxy. But despite that, I still wanted more. I still wished for an improvement, and Dino Fury delivered on every level. The characters are fun. They have nice development. They have an incredible group dynamic. The plot is great. The villains are memorable and fun as well. It knows when to take itself seriously, but it also knows when to have fun. Ion is incredible. Speaking on the representation, we have the first Black Sixth Ranger, the first confirmed LGBTQ Ranger. There's just so much in this show on so many different levels that it does great. Very much so. Dino Fury fire emoji. There is a reason I tweet that at least twice a month.
Hard agree.
I'm gonna tweet that right now so you know when this was being recorded.
Hashtag Dino Fury fire. Yes, I agree. Hard agree. I think the only thing really holding it back, and this is more of an issue because it is a 2-season thing, is that there's a couple backstory things that aren't elaborated on completely. But again, those are things that can get covered in Season 2, presumably. If I were to judge it entirely on its own, as a single season, I have to say definitely top 10. Definitely. Maybe top 5, but that'd be stretching it quite a bit. Dino Fury, the characters are fun. They're refreshing. Izzy is actually really great. She's one of my favorites right now. Like, I love her zillennial, like, thing, her slangs. Like, okay, boomer, like, to Boom Tower, that's fun. Like, she's refreshing. It's fun.
Izzy is a Twitter user as a Power Ranger.
She is, and it's amazing. I love the fact that these are Rangers that actually grew up with Rangers existing and are pumped to be a Rangers. They find out they're Rangers, and one of the first questions Amelia asks is, "Can we pilot a Zord?" And that's how he just screams, "Yes, this is how you do anniversary fandom nods and winks. This is how you do fan service. Have it be short and subtle. Have it be like people recognize, hey, I wanted to be a Ranger since I was a kid, and have it actually mean something."
Yeah.
Right? Because you get that from TJ in Turbo. Like, oh, I want to be a Ranger since I was a kid. And it's like, my dude, are you like, how old are you that you can consider being a kid when Rangers have only been around for like, what, like maybe 4 years? If that, maybe less, because the Rangers are seniors now, and they started when they were freshmen, so it's like, how long have they been Rangers? How long have you considered yourself to be not a kid? Like, hello?
Mm-hmm.
So, having people actually want to be Rangers since they were kids, and have it be feasible in universe, I think is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think Dino Fury is the correct way to do it, compared to what Ninja Steel and Beast Morphers tried to do. Beast Morphers, especially with all of the winks and nods and Easter eggs, and then even incorporating it into the finale and several other episode plot points, it was over the top in every way. The most we get here is the Lord Zed episode, and while yes, there are rumors that Lord Zed will play a prominent role in Season 2, well, first of all, those are just rumors, and secondary, execution matters. I don't mind Zed being a major villain. I would like that for several reasons. But it shouldn't just be, it's Zed because, hey, Mighty Morphin sells. There should be some kind of rationale behind it, which they basically did. Zed was the most powerful evil. And while, yes, later seasons established the Alliance of Evil and more, quote, powerful, he still had a reputation in the villain underworld.
And what I love is when he came back, it wasn't a one-and-done, one-off thing. It wasn't a villain pretending to be him like many people speculated. It wasn't an illusion. This was actually a for-real representation of Lord Zed, a version of him back from the dead, as it were, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's absolutely fascinating that they bring him back, and he's going to be a big player in Season 2, and I'm excited because they didn't tone him down. He's not, the kidified, married to Rita, whipped person that we were used to in Season 3, or with Zeo, or with Turbo. This is a Zed at his peak. This is a Zed who is threatening and menacing and ready to kill whoever he needs to for failures. He's ready to fight whoever he needs to fight. And I think that that's fascinating. Because if you remember back in MMPR, when he fights Tommy, he's waving his staff, not even trying, actively mocking Tommy. Are all those hayas really necessary? And it's awesome to get that Zed back.
Yeah, like he takes on all of the Dino Fury Rangers, plus 2 villain monsters, without his staff.
And this is something that you could feasibly see him doing in MMPR because of the way how he reacts to fighting just one Ranger, who at the time is the strongest Ranger, right? White Ranger is canonically the strongest MMPR Ranger. Mm-hmm. So I think it's feasible that this is not just nostalgia pandering. This is not just, it's Zed, so let's make him OP. This is Zed, he was OP, let's continue keeping him OP.
Yeah, definitely. And the other bit of lore that Dino Fury gives us is the Morphing Masters. I'm kind of mixed on them, but I do like what they bring, and they don't detract from the season. They're not a burden on the season. They aren't the focus, they're a background thing. Like, they're there because they gave the Rangers their powers, they're established to be assisting Rangers throughout Ranger history, they have a connection to the Morphing Grid, but aside from that, they're not prominent players in the story. It's not like the Rangers are working for the Morphing Masters or anything.
Oh, absolutely. Morphing Masters easily could have become something terrible because they would overshadow the actual Rangers, they would overshadow the villains, but the fact that their appearances are just sparingly occasional, and they're not always in the middle of the action, is a really great take for them. And it's absolutely fascinating that now we have a canon explanation to how all these different things link up to the Morphin Grid. Because these are items that were created by the Morphin Masters explicitly to create Rangers. And to me, that I think is actually a lot better than whatever previous explanations we had. Because having Tommy somehow make morphers that contain energems, that contain the power, or dino gems, that contain the power of dinosaurs, and have them turn into, Power Rangers or whatever, however that works, I think it is awesome that now we have a reason to feasibly understand how this happened. Maybe one of the Morphin Masters came to him and showed him how to do it, and then he told, Haley what to do, or maybe, whatever, right? We can theorize, fancraft, whatever we can do, but at the end of the day, now we have a little bit more of evidence of how this worked, right? We have evidence of, Time Force probably got access from the Morphin Masters, or whatever, right? And it's awesome, it's fantastic, because now there is a way that regular people can create morphers, something that a lot of fans had issues with in the past. A lot of fans arguing, okay, well, how do you connect to the Morphin Grid? Can anyone do it? Now we have a little bit better explanation of that. And it doesn't detract or take away from the accomplishments these people did. It just kind of gives us an alternate route of how they made those things. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's the best thing the Morphing Masters could have done. They could have gone south really fast, really easily, by being the mentors, or by being the overbearing, you have to do this because we say so, or you lose your powers. They could have been Kite, but they're not. And I love that.
Yeah. So overall, Dino Fury, fire emoji.
Dino Fury, fire emoji.
Okay. Number 8, Ninja Storm.
No, I'm not a fan.
This is another one where I get hate. I think Ninja Storm is overrated. Not just overrated, I feel like a lot of people haven't watched it recently, and as someone who has watched it very recently, it did not age very well.
It aged like a fine glass of milk.
Not
chunky.
Not just because of the slang and lingo that they use, not just because they have a focus on extreme sports culture, and none of that is a thing anymore. Those aren't the only reason it's outdated. It feels outdated because the characters don't feel like people who actually exist. They feel like
caricatures of teenagers.
Yeah. They feel like, how do you do, fellow kids?
They really do. And I think that's a product of Disney taking over. Because at the time when Disney took over and they were doing, Ninja Storm, extreme sports were a big thing. The X Games, hey, skating, hey, motocross, hey, surfing, hey, all these cool things. And it's very easy to understand why Disney did what they did. But I don't like it. The Rangers, more often than not, are jerks to each other. And sure, you can have that jerk relationship with your friends and still be friends, but half the time it kind of feels like they're just jerks to be jerks. You have an episode where Dustin saves the day because, hey, there's a thief who's going to break into the store. He turns to a Ranger, saves the day. The news reports on him. Is the Yellow Ranger going solo? Ooh, are we having a personal hero moment? And he starts getting a big head. And Shane, who had gone through the big head episode earlier and learned his lesson, he tells him, hey, dude, I've been there. Like, this is not a good thing. You need to take a chill pill, calm down. And Dustin is like, you're just jealous of me. And it's like, my dude, what? It just doesn't feel authentic or real to me for that to happen, right? Especially because just of the relationship these characters have. Dustin and Shane are, they're like the best friend characters in this. They're always hanging around each other. They're always like messing around. So it would make sense for Shane to give him advice and Dustin to at least think about it a little bit. But he doesn't. He just goes straight up, no, you're jealous of me, bro. I don't like that. I love how they're rude or like sarcastic to Cam before he becomes the Samurai Green. And he keeps whatever they give to him, he gives back just as well. He's snarky and sarcastic with them along that. And most of the time, the Rangers deserve it. So it's fun to see him, give as well as they give to him. He can dish it out too. And then when he does become a Ranger too, he's able to demonstrate, hey, I'm not just a smart guy. Look, I'm fighting. I can handle my own. And it's fantastic. It's awesome to see that happen. But again, just too much of it seems outdated. I don't like the Rangers as people or as Rangers. And at this point, I would put this way lower. I'd put this like in the 15-ish range at most.
Yeah, that might be roughly where I put it. Maybe a bit higher, but not anywhere near top 10. I don't care too much for most of the Rangers. Blake and Hunter were interesting as the Thunder Rangers. They had an interesting arc, but it kind of goes by too fast.
It does. They're introduced like episode 3 or 4. And then they spend a couple episodes as villains, and then they kind of disappear a little bit, and then we see them as humans, and then their secrets revealed, and then they're evil, and then they turn good, and then they disappear, and then they're back, and then they're brainwashed, and then there's a whole arc about them trying to become good again, and it's like, oh my goodness, what?
It's a big mess. It repeats itself several times just to prolong them officially joining the team. It feels artificially elongated. I will say that Cam's arc is very natural, leading up to him becoming a ranger, and then him accepting his role as one. I love Cam. Cam is probably the best character.
Oh,
But
definitely.
aside from him, the other rangers don't really do much for me. The villains, I like them enough. I like Lothar. I think that he is comedic, and he manages to do comedy well enough, but he doesn't really stand out as an incredible villain. Zergain is probably the best of the villains, just because I love him being the straight man, and he's also, he's there for a long time, so he's memorable. But then near the end of the show, they just keep bringing in a bunch of new generals that just keep getting destroyed and coming back, and none of them have any lasting impact or memorability to them. They're just kind of there.
Definite agree. Villains are weak. Lothar is the worst main villain we've ever had, I think. His comedy is terrible. He mugs. He's at the fourth wall. He breaks the fourth wall so many times. Well, they're not going to blow themselves up. What do you expect? Is it going to get smaller? Like, no, it's time and place for comedy. Having that type of comedy just does not work. They tried too hard to make him funny, and that ruined whatever menace or threat he had, because he was genuinely threatening. He was genuinely strong. He could have been an actual threat, but by making so many jokes, it just weakened him and made him like a loser. Because he's strong, but he's making these dumb jokes and losing every single battle every single week. And it's ridiculous at that point. Zergain definitely should have been the main leader. Like, have Lothar stick around for a while, have him be dispatched easily, and then have Lothar take over, or have Zergain take over, and there you go.
Yeah. I will say, though, one thing that I find interesting, I'm very surprised Disney did not attempt to shoehorn Tony Hawk in here somewhere. Because the overlap between Ninja Storm and Tony Hawk Pro Skater games at their peak is pretty close.
It's a circle. It's a circle.
So I'm surprised that Disney didn't try to get Tony Hawk to cameo somewhere.
Right.
Okay.
Number 7.
7 is Time Force. I'm gonna say hard no. I think Time Force is number 1. I'm not even gonna say top 3. Maybe I'm just gonna say it. Time Force is my top 1. I love everything about it. I love the characters. I love the themes. I love the villains. There is very little that I can actually say it did wrong. Like, it's not perfect, because nothing is perfect, but in terms of flaws, there's very little I can think to myself and point out, yeah, okay, that's a notable flaw, or, yeah, I think that could have been done better. I think everything is, at bare minimum, a solid level of standard, but more so than that, the vast majority of aspects exceed into really amazing and qualify as some of the best I've seen. The Rangers are, as a whole, incredibly dynamic. Yes, some of them fall a little flat on the development side, notably Katie and Lucas, but even then, they have their moments and they have their charm to them. They're memorable. The villains are the best villain group that we've had. Rancic is the best villain. The show opens with a Red Ranger getting murdered. That immediately sets the stakes and tone for this season, and it keeps that tone consistently throughout. And it ends on one of the best finales ever, a 3-parter. Very few seasons get 3-parters, but you can really tell it needed that 3-parter in order to tell the conclusion it wanted to in a satisfying way. Eric is probably one of the best 6 Rangers. He has a fantastic arc, which is a foundation for several other characters. And it's just the way he grows in unison with the other Rangers and develops and starts to befriend Wes after an entire lifehood of being against him because of his upbringing and his backstory. It's fantastic. It's near perfect in every single aspect and way. And I don't know how anyone could put it less than top 3, if not top 1.
I would definitely agree top 3. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I admire it. I know what it does right. I know what it does really well. If I'm being as objective as possible, I would say 1 or 2. If I'm saying for me personally, I'd say top 3 for sure. The absolute lowest I would go is 4, and even then that's a stretch. what it does great, it does fantastic. But my issues is not enough character development for Lucas and Katie. They could have done so much more with them, but they don't. Katie is reduced to the strong Yellow Ranger because eugenics. And Lucas is just cool and drives. So that to me is just kind of, a thing. They are more, caricatures than characters because they don't have that much development. We could have delved into Katie more specifically in the movie episode where they each get transported into a movie because, hey, she likes musicals. Does this mean she's, soft-hearted? Is she, kind of wish she could be a girly girl? Or does she like certain things that others think she's not into because of her strong aesthetic? Like, look at that. Elaborate on that. I don't like how it is serialized, and then there's quite a few episodic episodes that are just Monster of the Week that go nowhere. I understand that's the nature of Power Rangers. I understand up to that point there wasn't as much serialization. But if you're going to try to tell this, dark story, if you're going to be serious about it, and then you have an episode where, oh no, I have, there's a monster that makes me tell the truth, or whatever silly plot that happens is, it kind of throws the tone out the window. And to me, that's one of the weaknesses is that, I understand it can't be 100% serialized. I understand it shouldn't be 100% episodic, but just the sheer fact that it is a mix of the two, with episodic tending to win out more often than not, I think is kind of an issue. And that's, one of the things. Even those episodic shows are great. Those episodes are fantastic. They're fun. I'm not saying episodic instantly means bad. I'm saying that pacing-wise and story-wise, maybe have more episodic and a little less, or have more serialized and a little less episodic. Have the show a room to breathe. But don't, go do like, hey, we just finished this arc. Now here's like 5 episodes of silly goofy time. Hey, here's 5 episodes of meaningless filler. Okay, we're back to being serious, and you actually have to watch these episodes. So that's just, to me, one of those things that I dislike. Rancic, I have to agree, best villain, I think, out of most, if not all, of Power Rangers. He's menacing. He's the only villain that the Rangers don't defeat. He gives up willingly, and whether I like him or not, whether I think he's sympathetic or not, whether I think he's, a good villain or not, none of that matters. Because he is the only villain to surrender.
The answer to all those questions was yes, by the way. Yes, sympathetic. No. Yes, good.
No. Well, I mean, yeah, he's good. I just said he was good. No, but I don't think he's sympathetic. That's an argument for another day, though.
Yeah, we'll be here for 7 hours for that one. But, yeah, Time Force. Top 3. For me, top 1.
Number 6!
Turbo.
No!
That is... I honestly forgot we had not gotten into Turbo yet.
Turbo is... It's an interesting thing. This is the first time a whole team has been split off. This is the first time we have a child ranger. I think bottom half. I'm not quite sure what number exactly I would give it, but I know in the bottom half.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been great coming off the tails of Zeo. Zeo was really solid. And so to follow up Zeo and to suddenly be about cars and to suddenly have, about a third or so of the way through, the Rangers leave. After the idea of, hey, this is your next step. It, to me, just seems kind of, strange to go backwards in such a way if you were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely feel that Turbo is... It's very bad in its first half. Then once the Rangers leave and they get replaced with the new team, the quality improves drastically. It's kind of the opposite of Mighty Morphin, where when the Rangers get replaced, the quality goes down. In this case, it goes up a lot. And I'm sure there are several production reasons why that is, but regardless, you can very much tell there is an improvement. And I think when a lot of people hate on Turbo, it's because they remember those really bad early episodes. As a whole, it's not that good. Like, even with the best part, even when it's at its best, it still doesn't compare to other seasons. I would probably dump it somewhere in the middle, maybe top half. I'm not too sure. But I definitely think it's not one of the worst seasons, but it's also definitely not top 10.
I just think that if they're going to go through with the goofy silliness of it, either embrace it or do your best to work around it. Because when you have an episode about a giant pizza monster that makes your cars turn evil because of pizzas on their rims, and the Rangers are being baked into a giant pizza, either go all in and have fun with it, or write around it and make it actually be something serious that you need to be worried about. When the Rangers are shrunken down and turning into insects, either be very silly and goofy with it, or go the serious route and actually make it serious. Because the problem is, sometimes in the same episode, you'll have it be very dark and serious, then the next moment it'll be light and goofy, so it's very hard to tell what tone the show wants to be. And to me, that's why it's in the bottom half. Just because while the writing did improve in the second half, it still wasn't as consistent as I would have liked. And I can understand why people like it. I understand how some people really vibe with the goofy, funny elements, but to me, that's not a thing. You either go all the way in and make it fun and memorable and funny, or you try to lean back and make it, less goofy, more serious, kind of like how RPM did, and we'll tackle that horse when we get to it.
That horse is already too high, but moving on.
Number 5!
Number 5, MMPR Season 3. I do not think any season of MMPR should be in the top 10. I think that Season 3 is pretty good. I liked a lot of aspects of it, but as a whole, I do not think any of MMPR is top 10 worthy. Especially not top 5. They simply have not aged and do not compare to other seasons that could be in this spot.
I think top 7 maybe? Maybe 7 through 5, 8 through 5-ish. Definitely not top 5. I think that Season 3 is peak MMPR. It is the best. The only thing really bringing it down is the Alien Ranger subplot near the end.
Alien Rangers, I always separate it because it is so different. I know it's officially not a season, it's season 3.5, but it is so low that I simply cannot put it together with MMPR Season 3. If I were, it would wreck the curve worse than a college student who studied the night before.
Yeah, I mean, I would separate them too, but I think in this case we have to look at it as a whole. And in this case, looking at MMPR Season 3, including Alien Ranger, I'd say, top 10 maybe. For sure, at least, maybe 12. I think that MMPR Season 3 is all the best parts of MMPR. It is way more serialized than the past. Everything is essentially a multi-parter. Even the filler things tend to be multi-parters, and I think that is not necessarily the best way to handle it, but I think it's a good way to handle it, especially at the time. Because Power Rangers is starting to become a lot more than just this goofy show for kids. It's starting to take its audience way more seriously. You have more arcs. Things are getting more serious and darker. You have Kimberly. She is losing her powers. Oh no, her powers are tied to her life force. She's dying. We need to save her. Hey, here's this new person. Let's see if they can help us. Oh no, it's Kat. Oh no, Kat is actually a villain. Oh no, she's good now. Yay. And then when they tackle the Zeo Crystal, when that arc happens in Season 3, and you have the idea of, can Tommy and Kat even touch the Zeo Crystal? Because of its pure energy, anything evil gets, hurt, damaged, destroyed, what have you, depending on how evil it is. Do they still have evil in them? Can they be good? Right? And if the Zeo Crystal gives them the go-ahead, then now we know for a fact these are good people now. They've conquered their past demons, and I like how they use Kat to kind of address the thing about Tommy. Is he good? Is he a good person, or is he kind of just trying to make amends for the bad things he did? It doesn't go too in-depth with it, which is a shame, but had they gone more in-depth with it, had they explored that concept of Tommy a bit more, I think this season would have been standout. But as is, if we're doing just Season 3, no Alien, top 7. If we're including Alien Ranger, I'd say like around top 12, maybe top 10.
I think if you asked me to watch Mighty Morphin Season 3, I'm changing the channel and I'm watching Masked Rider instead.
A Friend in Need, Part 1 and 2.
Kamen Rider.
Kamen Rider.
Okay, number 4. RPM. As earlier stated, this horse is already too far. RPM, in my opinion, is massively overrated. Now, I must say this because for some reason people do not understand. Overrated does not mean bad. I do not think RPM is bad. I think it is a solid season. It has several great things about it, and there's a reason people love it. But it is not a top 5 season. It is top 10. I personally rank it about 6 or 7. But it really falls apart. When people think about RPM, they think about the great moments. The start was incredible. It started off very strong. It had this great atmosphere to it. It had solid characters. Um, the introduction to the characters is some of the best because each character got their own introduction episode where we learned their backstory. And some of them were even multi-parters depending on how they needed to tackle it. But after that introductory period is over, it becomes such a mess. It's all over the place. It's not necessarily it's not really coherent. And part of that is production issues behind the scenes. There's a gigantic mess revolving RPM's production. The ending isn't even the ending that was originally planned. Things changed halfway through, and you can really tell. Rewatching RPM, you can tell when that quality shift happens, and it's just not as consistent. It's not as strong, it's not as good. It's still solid, it's still enjoyable, but it's not a top season.
Yeah, I would say, while I do personally enjoy RPM, I don't think I would put it top 5. I think maybe top 7 or 8. I really enjoy it. I think it's fantastic. I don't think it's the best. I think some of the writing issues really shine through, and we can see the actual problems with it. You can tell how the first half is just different enough from the second half to where if you're not paying attention, you can tell, okay, is this a different show now? It can be jarring. You start off very dark, very gritty, very serious, and then you end up becoming a lot more, not necessarily goofy and silly, but definitely more jokes where there wouldn't have been previously. You can tell that things changed behind the scenes, and that is kind of one of the things that hurts the season. And I think that the ending, not as satisfying as it could have been. Even trying to ignore the cliffhanger of having Venjix survive inside the Morpher, just the way he's defeated, not very satisfying. I don't like the idea that, hey, all you need to do is drop a giant spire on him and he's dead. Because we've seen him get blown up before, we've seen him get destroyed before, and he downloads to a new body. Maybe at least have some kind of throwaway line or some kind of explanation saying, hey, we put up a firewall around the city, so now Venjix can't, download himself back into his tube body or something. Something to explain why this time it seems to be a permanent defeat instead of all the other times.
I really dislike the finale to RPM. It feels rushed. It feels very all over the place. The strongest arc that it has is probably Dylan's arc. Him learning about his past, his sister, then discovering, he's part robot. It's very similar to Max, but different enough that it feels unique and fits his character specifically. I also love Doc K. She's an incredible character. I love her backstory. Ziggy is a lot of fun. Gem and Gemma, also incredibly entertaining, very solid. I love how you can tell their childlike personality is a result of their trauma, and Dr. K had very similar trauma, but went through it in a different manner because of her personality and her specific experiences being by herself, compared to Gem and Gemma, who had each other. That's all really good and solid, but Venjix, I feel, is not a good villain. I think people hype up Venjix too much because of the fact that he destroyed all life except for one city, but RPM is set in another universe where there are no Power Rangers, so there was no one to stop him. If he tried to do this in main continuity, other teams of Rangers would have fought back, and he presumably would not have been able to achieve that, so...
The only thing that could really save this season and make it higher up than it is, was if they kind of, A, kept that consistency, and B, made sure to explain exactly why Venjix can't capture the city. What's stopping him from... Because he's snuck into the city before. He sent in goons and his grinders and all these things. What's stopping him from, sending in the grinders to some other place, shutting down water treatment, shutting down air filtration, just slowly adding in little things to kind of stop the city from being able to function? Because we see him do things like that, but he never goes all the way through. And so that kind of diminishes him as this evil, cold, calculating monster, because why not just go straight up for it? Is the dome around Corinth, is it actually a giant sphere around? Why can't he dig under? I know he tries that in an episode, but why doesn't he continue trying it? I don't recall if in the episode they elaborate on, hey, we extended the dome, or it's a sphere now, or whatever. But, it's just one of those things that happens. Flynn, one of the greatest Blue Rangers ever. He's Scottish. What more do you need? He's awesome. He's fun. All the characters are very fun. I don't think there's any character I actively disliked. And yeah, I think we've said pretty much everything there is to say about RPM at this point.
I thought you disliked Summer.
She's not... my feelings with Summer are mixed. I like her sometimes, and then other times I dislike her, and then other times I think she's just okay. It's a mixed bag with her.
I see. Okay.
Number 3!
Number 3, In Space. This is actually exactly where I have In Space. In Space is my number 3. I definitely think In Space, in terms of the Zordon era, is pretty much the perfect finale. It culminates the overarching story of the villains as well as the Rangers, even if it's not the same Rangers that we've been following since the start. I think it's a very beautiful transition from the end of Turbo into In Space, and I think that the finale is one of the best finales in the franchise. Even as its own season, without any of that, it's still incredibly solid. It has great characters. The Earth Rangers get far better treatment here than they do in Turbo. I think TJ is far more iconic as Red because having, the first Black Red Ranger was impactful and it's something that should be celebrated. But I think looking at him as a character, he was far better as In Space Blue. He had more development. Despite being blue, he was essentially still the leader. He led the Earth Rangers, whereas Andros was just kind of doing his own thing for the most part. Yes, they were a cohesive team, but you could definitely tell the Earth Rangers followed TJ more than they followed Andros a lot of times.
Oh, definitely hard agree there. One of the greatest things I really do like about In Space is the characterization of the Earth Rangers, how they go from, normal kids becoming Rangers, or normal teenagers, if you will, becoming Rangers, to now, hey, we lost, we need to work hard to kind of, get this back in track. And so it's interesting to see how that dynamic shifts, how you go from, hey, you have TJ as the leader, and now you have Andros, and the Rangers tend to fall back on TJ more. He becomes kind of like the strategist for the team. He handles the Psycho Rangers. He kind of figures out their weakness and says, hey, instead of switching up enemies on them, why don't we change colors so they don't know who's who? And he learns from whatever mistakes he made back in, Turbo, and the season really does mature. Personally, I would put In Space top 5, maybe not top 3. I'd have to definitely rewatch it before I made that decision. But I honestly do believe it is top 5 material. The relationship between Andros and Astronema, very fascinating. It's amazing to see how someone, could be a villain because of their upbringing, even if they were raised a certain way. This really does drive home the idea of nature versus nurture. Is Astronema evil because she was raised to be evil, or is she a good person because that's who she was initially, right? And so it's absolutely fascinating to see that juxtaposition there. It's fascinating to see how the Earth Rangers grow and evolve through this season and through the hardships they faced. And so overall, I would definitely have to say top 5, maybe not top 3. I'd have to rewatch it. If I am considering it as the finale to In Space, then I would think, yeah, most likely top 3. If I'm thinking about it as its own season, most likely top 5.
Yeah. Just gonna add real quick. I definitely agree the villains are incredibly standout. Astronema and Ecliptor especially are so very strong, especially when you compare them to the previous villains that we've gotten. Rita was just kind of wacky and silly. Zed was powerful and menacing. The Machine Empire exists. Divatox exists. But this is the first time we get someone with actual depth and layers to them. It's the first time we explore a villain beyond just wants to destroy the Rangers, wants to conquer Earth. She has a backstory, she has development, she has growth, she has relationships. And same for Ecliptor. He's not just a general. He has connections, he has affections, feelings, loyalty. The way Dark Spectre manipulates and ultimately brainwashes them. It's something incredibly drastically different from how the villains had previously been portrayed, where they were just evil villain wants to conquer Earth.
And what I especially love is once Astronema's brainwashed to become pure evil, she goes full force with it. She decides, if I'm going to be evil, I want to be the most evil. So she creates the Psycho Rangers as a way of 2 birds, 1 stone. get rid of Dark Spectre because the Psycho Rangers are tied to his dark energy, and you can use them to defeat the Rangers, so there's no one to stop you. And then once Dark Spectre is weak enough, you can go ahead and take him out and become the supreme leader of the United Alliance of Evil. And I think that is absolutely one of the smartest big brain plays that any villain has ever done when it comes to sabotaging and overthrowing their leader. Because you have this, idea of loyalty, you have the idea of, hey, understand and follow the hierarchy of evil, hierarchy of command, chain of command, all that good stuff with the United Alliance of Evil. But once Astronema becomes fully evil, she has no sense of loyalty or no sense of, fear or respect. She just understands top dog is the most powerful. I'm going to be the top dog, so I got to take out the guy who's in charge right now. And I love that she does that. The Psycho Rangers are the greatest evil Rangers ever. I don't think there's anyone who's been a match for them, not just in terms of strength and feats, but in terms of threat, in terms of scale. I think definitely Psycho Rangers are top tier standard for evil Rangers.
Yeah, pretty much agree on all of that. And yeah, I just think everything that In Space does, it earns its place very much in the top 3.
Number 2!
Number 2 is Zeo.
Zeo.
Okay, I'm gonna have difficulty with this one because Zeo definitely needs a rewatch. However, I will say I do not feel Zeo should be top 3, nor top 5. Maybe it could inch its way into top 10 after a rewatch, but in terms of immediate judgment right now, I'm going to say no to top 3 and no to top 5. Zeo, from what I can recall, is very good. It's a step up from Mighty Morphin. It's a very nice transition into these new powers in this new world. I love how they brought Jason back, and it felt like a natural return to his character. I wish that they had done more with Billy. I'm kind of disappointed in how Billy gets treated in Zeo, because he was one of the best characters in Mighty Morphin.
And the last original of the 5.
Mm-hmm. But I think what especially ruins Zeo for me is that the Machine Empire is just awful as villains.
They just exist.
Like, even Divatox, who I'm not too fond of, was fun. Divatox was fun and had her moments. She was over the top. And that worked for a season like Turbo. But Zeo doesn't really have strong villains. It's kind of interesting how they set up the scheming and the plotting within the Empire. That's interesting, but it's never really delved in too deeply. They never really explore the different hierarchy in terms of the offshoot families or things like that. It's just it's something that's there and interesting, but briefly touched on and nothing more, nothing less.
If they're all robots and machines, why program with a sense of disloyalty? Why not just program everyone to be loyal to the king? Why is it okay for some people to be loyal and some not? What is the purpose of that?
Yeah. And then, the other thing that I have against Zeo being this high is simply, I don't think that it's necessarily aged too well. Again, that statement could change upon rewatch, but I have rewatched sporadic episodes not too long ago, and they were not as well as I remembered them to be. You could definitely tell the age on them, and you could tell that it's not something that really compares to current seasons, or even previous seasons, like Time Force, or Lightspeed Rescue.
Oh, definitely.
Or Wild Force.
Definitely agree there. I definitely think that a rewatch is in order, but I would not put this higher than maybe 8 or 7, I would say. Again, like I said, a rewatch would be needed. There are some great things about it, but some things kind of disappointing. And one thing I will admire this season 4 is the fact that it kind of gives us a little seed or a notion of what kind of heroes Bulk and Skull are going to be when it comes to In Space. We didn't touch on that yet, but hashtag Bulk and Skull deserve statues because of their fight against the Cogs and Piranhatrons and everyone at the end of In Space when Earth is being invaded by Astronema.
You mean when hashtag Earth fights back?
Don't make me hurt you. Don't make me hurt you.
Continue.
So I think, because we have an episode where they go to the moon and they're captured by the Machine Empire and they're forced to become gladiators to fight, and they kind of, in their own way, fight against the Cogs and they free themselves and the other people that were trapped fighting. And it kind of shows that these guys, at some point, will be heroes. Maybe not Rangers, but they can be heroes. And their arc really culminates in in space. And that's something, that I can really say is that, seasons 2 and 3, roughly, of MMPR did kind of lean towards that. But it's not till Zio that we start actually seeing shades of these people actually trying to be heroes actively for no purpose other than being good people.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. It's very interesting to see, and I think Zio was a big step forward in terms of storytelling and character development. So there is a lot to praise about it. I just don't necessarily feel it holds up compared to other seasons that could be in the number 2 spot.
Definitely agree. And number 1, if you've been keeping track, following along, we have Dino Thunder.
We have the end of this video. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. Let us know what you thought of the seasons below. Do you agree or disagree with our... Okay, I'll let you rant.
Okay, Dino Thunder, my personal favorite. Part of it is because this is what I grew up with, right? This was my Power Rangers. I watched Ninja Storm here and there. Not all of it. Sometimes I would watch a few episodes. Usually not. Mostly because my mom, she was very against Power Rangers when we were little because, oh no, violence, oh no, fighting. But as we grew older, she kind of got okay with it. And by the time Dino Thunder came out, that was my first season watching from beginning to end. It is my season. It is the beginning of this obsession, and it will be the end of this obsession. By which I mean, I'll always love it till the end. And so, for me, Dino Thunder, I think, is a culmination of everything that's right with Power Rangers up till that point. Other seasons do things, better, but I think for where it is in the timeline, when it came out, it did everything that the previous seasons did better than them. It had teenagers that felt like real teenagers. They acted like their own little cliques. You had the tech dude, you had the jock, you had the artsy emo musician, you had the artist, you had the teacher, you had all these archetypes coming together. It was the Breakfast Club, but Power Rangers, and it was fantastic because at the beginning these people don't like each other, and you can see their development as it goes through. You can see them grow to appreciate each other as teammates, and then that grows into an actual friendship. If they become friends at the end, they become, these people who have bonded through these experiences, and they've grown, and they have become new people. Connor, season 1, he's sexist, he's a jerk, he's full of himself, he has an ego. At the end, he's got a bit of an ego still, but it's toned down. He understands when it's right to brag, he understands when it's not. He knows he's not all that. He knows you gotta treat women with respect. Drink your respect women juice out there, everyone, please. And so he grows as that person. He understands what it means to be a leader. He understands, hey, just because I'm the best at this one thing does not mean I should be calling all the shots. It does not mean I can get away with whatever I want. It means I have this responsibility. It means I have this authority to do the right thing. And I have to do the right thing and do right by my teammates. Right? Kira learns to become part of a team. She opens up and she becomes friends with these people that she wouldn't otherwise. Ethan, he's very sarcastic, he's witty, he's smart, he's able to use his genius not just for pulling random pranks and doing that kind of stuff, but he becomes a tech guy and he helps each other and he powers through that. He helps people out. I love that in Bully for Ethan. He's getting bullied. This dude's being a jerk to him. And he's not meek or shy about it. He's not like, oh, sorry, I'll stay out of your way. No. He gives and he fights back verbally. Sure, he might not be the best fighter, on his team. But if he were to fight against this dude one-on-one, Ethan would win easily because of his dino powers and because of his ranger abilities that he has. But he chooses not to fight physically because he knows he's better than that. He knows this guy's not worth it. He'll lash back. He'll be sarcastic. He'll be angry. He'll be witty. He'll do whatever it takes verbally to, fight back. He's not going to take it. And at the end, he finds a problem much more elegantly by coming up with a computer program to solve it. And so all this stuff is just peak Power Rangers. The goofiness and the silliness of it is still there, but it doesn't take away from the serious moment. Mesogog, one of the greatest villains of all time in Power Rangers. I've said that a lot, but I think this guy could actually be the number 1. I think that Mesogog is fantastic because it's the duality of man. It is the evil side to, Anton Mercer. It's his darker half. And the fact that Tommy worked with this guy means that Mesogog has some knowledge of Ranger shenanigans to some extent. And it's absolutely fascinating to see that. This is the beginning of when Tommy comes back to the show and becomes a major character. And unfortunately, this kind of leads to the Tommy chilling that we've seen in previous seasons and in the last few years or so. And no hate to Jason David Frank. I'm sure he's an awesome guy. I'm sure he's cool or whatever. But too much of a good thing is a bad thing, too much Tommy is a bad thing, and I think at this point in history, in Dino Thunder, bringing him back, I think was the smartest thing to do, because you bring back part of the old crew, and you establish that, yes, this takes place in the same universe as the previous seasons. And I think overall, you have solid writing, solid characterization, solid action. Everything is just very, very well done. It does have some flack here and there. There's some things that aren't really well written. There's some jokes that don't always land. Some of the filler is not too great. But overall, I think that Dino Thunder, to put it simply, is the best season because it does everything the best. And when it doesn't do the best, it does well enough. And I could keep going on for hours and hours and hours and hours. I really honestly could. Just because of how much I love it. Just because of how many times I've seen it. Right? I may not watch this every year, but I've seen it enough to understand what makes it work and understand what makes it the best that it is. Wallet, please no. Please no, Wallet.
So, I actually was paying attention, by the way. I definitely agree with pretty much everything you've said. Dino Fury is one of those seasons that there's so much to say about because, I mean, it does everything so well. It's not my number one, but it's not even in my top 3, actually, but it is in my top 5. And I can definitely see why it would be in someone's top 3, or why it would even be someone's number 1. It's an incredibly valid pick, and there are so many good things about it. I'm hard on Dino Thunder, mostly to mess with you. But if I'm being truly and genuinely honest, yeah, it's a fantastic season. It's a standout season, and it's one that would easily fit the bar for number 1. I love the characters. I love the development they get. I love the villains. If I had one complaint about the villain, Zeltrax is kind of weak. I wish there was more to him. I'm not one of those people that wishes he was a previously established character. I'm fine with him being a new character. But I don't know, he disappears for a while, and when he comes back, it's just not the same. I wish he had been more consistent. Trent is the best Evil Ranger redemption story that we've gotten. I think that the White Ranger arc is far better than Green with Evil. Green with Evil is iconic and impactful and memorable for its time. A 5-episode story arc where the heroes are constantly losing, that was unprecedented, and it's still incredibly impactful. It still holds up. But looking at them side by side, I love Trent's arc so much more. Even if they both had a completely ridiculous way to redeem said villain, one by destroying a sword that had nothing to do with the original curse, and the other by shooting a laser.
It was uncut, the laser purified the evil in it, it makes sense, don't at me!
But regardless of those minor gripes, it doesn't detract from the season as a whole, and it's just great. It's phenomenal. It's definitely a modern MMPR, but a modern MMPR done right. If Megaforce wanted to capture the heart of Mighty Morphin and bring it into a new era, they should have looked at Dino Thunder for inspiration.
Definitely a much better modern Power Rangers than the Power Rangers movie that came out like a few years ago. So, there's that.
Well, you're right, we didn't put Power Rangers 2017 on this list. Alright, that's the number 1 spot, guys.
No.
But don't you know, Twitter tells me every other week this movie deserves far better. And I mean it did, but man, those tweets are annoying.
Twitter bad. Smiley face.
Okay, so, I think that's pretty much everything we have to say. As you can tell, our opinions differed from the article as well as from each other. And obviously that's natural. There are going to be different opinions. But let me know what you think. Whether it be what you think of what we had to say about a respective season, what you thought of the article's placing, or your own individual ranking list. This was a really fun discussion video. It went on far longer than I imagined. I intended this to be about 45 minutes, and we're about over 2 hours.
Yeah.
But, it was a very good discussion. I very much enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed listening to this on your long car drive home.
If you want to hear us ramble about different topics, maybe not just Power Rangers, but topics in general, feel free to let us know down in the comment box below. We'll pick whatever we think would be fun and entertaining, not just for all of you, but for ourselves to discuss, and, we'll go from there.
Yeah. Truth be told, I want to do more discussion videos like this. Just 1 hour, 2 hour, maybe even 3 hours, just talking about a subject. for this one, we had a list to look at and compare. But maybe another time it's just off-scripted. Hey, let's look at villains, or let's look at movies, or whatever. And not just with my brother, but with other people too. If you ever want to work on something, just reach out to me on Discord. Easiest way to find me. But either way, I hope you enjoyed this discussion video. If you did not click off after the 10-minute mark because I said Shinkenger bad, thanks you for sticking around. If you did not click off after the whatever minute mark because I said Lost Galaxy bad, thank you for sticking around.
And if you stick around after my, half an hour rant on why Dino Thunder best season, thanks.
Either way, I hope you all enjoyed. Link to my community Discord server in the description down below to continue the conversation. And I'll see you guys
Next time!